So 8 months ago, I released my top 25 favorite coasters video out of about 173. Since then, I've ridden over 135 new coasters, bringing my total count up to 310. I recently returned from a trip to 13 new parks, picking up 90 new coaster credits. This video will act as a bit of a preview of my vlogs from that trip that will be coming. I've now visited most of the notable parks in the United States. Notable parks that I still have not visited include the Northern California parks, Lagoon, most of Pennsylvania, Dollywood, Holiday World, and Kentucky Kingdom, at least not really. This top 50 list will be my personal favorites, not based on mathematics or what I think your favorite 50 of what I've ridden would be. It's based on my personal preferences and experiences, so any coaster that has a great story surrounding it will help to enhance it in my mind and move it up my list. Things like that are going to be unique for everyone. Now, a note on my personal preferences: I love the way RMC coasters ride on the track. I love even more the way Intamins ride on the track. Even their shaky ones I have no issues with. However, I don't like the way B&Ms tend to ride on the track nearly as much. That might be an unpopular opinion, but it does hold some B&M coasters down on my list. They will be well represented among my upper mid-card coasters, but then they start to disappear as we get into my absolute top tier coasters. So that's a trigger warning for the multitudes of B&M fans out there. So with all that said, here's my top 50. Number 50 goes to Kraken, the B&M floorless coaster at SeaWorld Orlando. This one fell out of favor with me a little bit this year as it was riding a bit shaky, so other coasters did leapfrog it, but it's still a great ride with a fun layout. 49 is Behemoth, the B&M Hyper at Canada's Wonderland, which I just rode. I've heard it's not riding as well this year. It did have a slight rattle, but not too bad. It did have some borderline ejector airtime. 48 is Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure, my favorite CCI wood coaster and my 300th coaster credit. It's a simple layout, but it has a ton of airtime moments, and the ride just seems to keep going on forever with excellent pacing. 47 is Magnum XL200 at Cedar Point. This Aero hypercoaster has amazing views and great ejector airtime on the return trip. It rides a little bumpy, but I have no issues with the way Aero coasters ride. 46 is Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This elite hypercoaster has plenty of floater airtime and a nice surprise ejector moment, and it utilizes the terrain really well, and it's at one of the most beautiful parks in the world. 45 is Titan at Six Flags Over Texas. This Gaia Vanola Hyper has almost no airtime, but it is very forceful with a great double helix before the mid-course and another helix after, which commonly cause grayouts. This was my first truly big coaster, and that history is the only reason why this is anywhere near my top 50. 44 is Nitro, another B&M Hyper, this one at Six Flags Great Adventure. This one is all floater airtime, but it's a very smooth ride, and it has some beautiful views along the way, and perhaps the best B&M Hyper layout, in my opinion. 43 is Green Lantern, the B&M stand-up coaster, also at Six Flags Great Adventure. This is my favorite stand-up coaster, and as long as I kept my head forward, this was such a fun ride with great inversions, plus a literal standing airtime moment. I believe that this is a highly underrated coaster. 42 is Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa. This is made by the great Intamin, and despite it being a borderline family coaster, it still provides 3 great launches, a few strong airtime moments, and an inversion with hang time, plus it's a nice long ride. 41 is Superman Krypton Coaster, the B&M floorless coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. This one can be a bit rattly, but its interaction with the quarry wall really makes it stand out, and I have a long history with this ride. Now, I will not be giving Joker's Jinx at Six Flags America its own spot because there's a better clone of it further up the list, but if I gave it its own spot, it would be right here. Number 40 is SheiKra, the B&M dive coaster at Busch Gardens Tampa. This was my first dive coaster, and I loved how different it was from anything else I had ever ridden before. It rides so smooth in the front row, and the airtime on that drop is outstanding. 39 is Valravn, the B&M dive coaster at Cedar Point. This ride might have a bit of a rattle, but the vest restraints prevent any headbanging, and it's a much better layout than SheiKra with 2 extra inversions, and the views on this ride are amazing. 38 is Hydra the Revenge, the B&M floorless coaster at Dorney Park. This was my favorite ride in the park, and I love how unique it was compared to other floorless coasters, from the JoJo roll out of the station to the strange layout and the awkward shaped Cobra roll. I couldn't get enough of this ride, and it was very smooth. 37 is Banshee, the B&M inverted coaster at Kings Island. The vest restraints eliminated all headbanging on this one, and it is probably the best layout for any invert in the world. The pretzel knot is awesome, and the final inline twist has great hang time. 36 is also at Kings Island, Mystic Timbers, the GCI wooden coaster. This is such a fun ride. It's very aggressive, and it rides so smooth. There's a ton of airtime moments with different twisting and tilting during the airtime. You aren't perfectly level side to side on every airtime moment, which isn't the case for most airtime-based coasters, and that makes this one really stand out. 35 is Tatsu, the B&M Flyer at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This ride uses a terrain well, and I love the long layout without a mid-course brake run and the multiple inversions and the giant pretzel loop near the end. This got overshadowed for me at the park, but it's still a great ride. 34 is Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, the mock multi-launch coaster with a controlled spin. It's such a fun ride as you never know how it's going to ride because of the rotating. This features 2 gentle launches and 3 fun inversions, but it's not too intense, so everyone can enjoy it. 33 is Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, the RMC Raptor coaster. My least favorite RMC because of the uncomfortable shoulder straps and very short ride duration, but it's still an excellent ride with some crazy, intense, aggressive airtime and fun inversions. 32 is Full Throttle at Six Flags Magic Mountain, the premier launch coaster. This one really surprised me with the strong launch, amazing hang time on the vertical loop, and the best upside-down view on any coaster I've ridden, plus a fun surprise later on in the ride. 31 is The Beast at Kings Island. This old wooden coaster is not about the numbers, but all about the great experience of going deep into the woods, especially if you can get a night ride. Those night rides are so amazing and well worth waiting out the fireworks delay for. 30 is Bizarro at Six Flags Great Adventure, my new favorite B&M floorless coaster. The layout is their standard 7 inversion layout, but what sets this apart is how smooth this one rides. No headbanging, plus some really great theming during the ride. I couldn't get enough of this. 29 is Prowler at Worlds of Fun, still my favorite GCI wooden coaster and a former overall #1 of mine. This one has about the same quantity and quality of airtime as Mystic Timbers, but Prowler rides a bit rougher, which is probably the thing that makes it more fun for me. 28 is Goliath, the B&M Hypercoaster at Six Flags Over Georgia, the only B&M Hyper without a mid-course brake run, so it has excellent pacing, plenty of airtime that actually includes some ejector, which is rare for a B&M Hyper, plus a forceful helix that causes many grayouts. 27 is my favorite B&M Hyper, Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. Goliath's layout might be better, but I have more fun on Mako. It also features ejector airtime, including what might be the best single moment of airtime on any B&M coaster, the hill that gives about 4 seconds of crazy, sustained ejector airtime. I love the theming, and it's at one of the best parks in the world. 26 is Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast, the premier launch coaster at both Six Flags St. Louis and Six Flags Over Texas. The Reverse Blast is so much better than the Forward Blast. I love that huge spike while staring straight down at the ground, and the inverted top hat, and the return trip is even faster, and I have a long history with this ride. 25 is New Texas Giant, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags Over Texas. The first ever RMC creation might not measure up to the later ones, but it's still excellent, with a great mix of floater and ejector airtime, nice overbanks and tunnels. It's not technically a hyper, but it rides like one, and is certainly better than any B&M hyper, in my opinion. 24 is Poltergeist at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, my favorite premier launch coaster. The visuals of this, plus the station, is better than Joker's Jinx, plus I have a longer history with this one. I love all the head choppers and the intensity of this ride. It is one of the most fun coasters I've ever ridden. 23 is Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland, the new for 2019 B&M dive coaster. The first drop into the underwater tunnel is so amazing with awesome visuals, plus the second inversion is incredible. I love dive coasters, but this one certainly took dive coasters to the next level and beyond. Number 22 is also at Canada's Wonderland, and given the day, I might switch this and Yukon Striker. But for today, I'm giving the edge to Leviathan, the B&M Giga Coaster, which means it's over 300 foot tall. There's so much speed on this, plus that awesome speed hill. Best of all, this ride's perfectly smooth. I didn't think it was possible for any B&M coaster that goes over 80 miles an hour to ride without a terrible rattle, but both this and Yukon Striker are perfectly smooth. Now, this would be the spot that I would put King Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure if I were giving it its own spot. There's a better near clone of it further up the list, but King Ka's restraints aren't as good, but they weren't bad for me. Number 21 goes to the Superman Ride of Steel clones at both Six Flags America and Darien Lake. These are Intamin hypercoasters, and for me, these were far superior to any B&M hypercoaster. Unlike most of those, this has no mid-course brake run. It's a simple layout with 2 helixes and a strange straight track section, but the crazy ejector airtime hill between the helixes is perhaps the strongest single moment of airtime I have ever experienced. Plus, it finishes up with 3 awesome ejector airtime hills. And I love the way these Intamins ride on the track. Darien Lake had the better visuals with how it went over the water, while it seemed like Six Flags America's had stronger airtime. 20 will be Matu, the B&M inverted coaster at Busch Gardens, Tampa. My favorite invert. This one is so intense with 7 crazy inversions, which are diving into and out of trenches, which make the visuals so awesome. Plus, this ride's very smooth with no headbanging. 19 is Kumba, the B&M sit-down coaster, also at Busch Gardens, Tampa. These two are running neck and neck. I gave the edge to Kumba because this one takes intensity to the next level. Sitting so close to the track, it feels like you're going faster than you're actually going, and that ramps up the intensity as well. This one also features 7 crazy inversions. It can produce some headbanging if you don't ride it correctly, but I did find a way to ride it that works for me when I was there in April, and I couldn't get enough of this. 18 is Maverick, the Intamin Blitz coaster at Cedar Point. Many people will put this higher, but I still love the ride. The shoulder restraints bother me a little, but I love that crazy drop, the airtime, the inversions, the rapid-fire transitions, the mid-course launch through the tunnel, the unpredictable twists and tilts of this ride. It truly is a masterpiece. 17 is Manta, the B&M Flyer at SeaWorld Orlando. This is my favorite flyer with a great pretzel loop, 4 inversions, awesome waterfall flybys as it goes out over the water, and I love the way it's sprawled out over the midway of this beautiful park, and it has amazing theming in the queue. 16 is Twisted Cyclone, the RMC Hybrid at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is a very short ride, but it still packs in 3 inversions, an awesome wave turn, and plenty of strong airtime moments and head choppers. The night ride on this is outstanding as well, and because it's an RMC Hybrid, it rides perfectly smooth. 15 is Twisted Colossus, the RMC Hybrid at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is a Mobius loop, which means you get to ride both sides of this dueling coaster without getting off the train. Each side is quite short, but the 2 sides together make for a long ride. I only have gotten 1 duel on this, and that did take it to a whole new level, and would be a bit higher on my list if it dueled more, but it does have tons of airtime moments and 2 great inversions, and it was my 200th coaster credit. 14 is Goliath, the RMC wooden coaster at Six Flags Great America. This is also a short ride, but it's longer than Twisted Cyclone or the Raptors. This one has an awesome drop, and it's one of the fastest RMCs in the world. It does have some great airtime moments, plus 2 of my all-time favorite inversions. This is the only coaster in my top 50 that I haven't ridden in the last 12 months, but I'll be returning to the park in a few weeks. 13 is Outlaw Run, the RMC wooden coaster at Silver Dollar City. This wooden coaster uses the terrain really well, has an excellent first drop, a nice wave turn, plus 3 inversions, including the signature double barrel roll at the end with great hang time. This used to be my favorite wooden coaster, and it was my 100th coaster credit. Number 12 is a trigger warning. This is where I put Fury 325, the B&M Giga Coaster at Carowinds. This will be in many people's top 5, but it just didn't wow me enough. Plus, it was extremely rattly. If it rode smooth, it might move up a couple spots. But I still really loved it as it reaches incredible speeds of 95 miles an hour, and it keeps its speed so well. Has that awesome treble clef and dive under the walkway, plus 3 more airtime moments in the second half, all without a mid-course brake run. Maybe I didn't fully get this coaster when I was there, but it was just lacking something to take it into my absolute top tier. Number 11 is El Toro, the Intamin wooden coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. Many people will also have this one higher. It does have a few rough jackhammering spots, plus some of the airtime hills are quite weak, and it is crawling into the final breaks. However, that first drop, plus the two giant airtime hills that follow, and the Rolling Thunder Hill, are four of the most insane ejector moments of airtime I have ever experienced. Those four moments are so amazing that that's enough to overcome its weaknesses and land in my number 11 spot. Number 10 is Gatekeeper, the wing coaster at Cedar Point, and this is my favorite B&M coaster of all. I am totally in love with wing coasters. I love the feeling of no track above you, no track below you, and this one rides perfectly smooth. I love all the great inversions. The Immelman makes me partially gray out every time, and the keyholes are an awesome visual. It's not a crazy intense ride, but it is simply glorious and heavenly. Number 9 is Top Thrill Dragster, the Intamin launch coaster at Cedar Point. 0 to 120 miles an hour in under 4 seconds, a straight up climb to 420 feet, a spiraling vertical drop of 400 feet, and that's it. So simple, so short, but it does those things so well that it's enough to get into my top 10. This still freaks me out every ride, and most coasters don't do that to me anymore. Number 8 is Twisted Timbers, the RMC hybrid at King's Dominion. This ride is so amazing with its barrel roll drop, the 20 airtime moments, the trick track double up, the airtime hill where you get surprisingly yanked to the other side. I love those kind of things. This is such a fun ride with airtime that legitimately had my legs bruised, and I loved it. Number 7 is Intimidator 305, the Intamin Giga Coaster at King's Dominion. I have flip-flopped these last two coasters since my last list, despite having not been back to the park. I'm just loving Intamin more as I ride more of their coasters, so my memory of I-305 is improving the further I'm removed from it. It is extremely intense with a very forceful turn after the first drop, and a few great airtime moments, crazy rapid transitions, a great forest view from the top, and one of my all-time favorite night rides. Better restraints and no trims would move this even further up my list. Number 6 is going to Wicked Cyclone, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags New England. I hear it's riding great this year, and I was amazed. It has a couple of those airtime hills where you get surprisingly pulled to the other side. Plenty of awesome airtime moments, tons of head choppers, some hang time, 3 excellent inversions, and this ride just seems to keep going forever. It's an awesome long ride, and it still has strength left on the last couple airtime hills. Number 5 is going to Millennium Force at Cedar Point, the iconic Intamin Giga Coaster. It might be overhyped, and there are weaknesses in its layout, but this is certainly a huge sentimental pick for me. I was getting solid ejector airtime on the 3 airtime hills on all my summer rides last year, plus it keeps its speed so well, feels like it's going so fast, and has the most amazing views from the top of the lift hill. This is also an excellent night ride. Now, for the biggest upset from my most recent trip, and by far my biggest surprise. Number 4 goes to Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England, the Intamin Hypercoaster. I hear that this is also riding great this year. I never expected to love this as much as I did, and I do have a great story surrounding this one. The restraints didn't bother me like they do for some people, but the T-bars would still have been better. That's the only change I would make to this ride. Where do I begin? The height, the speed, how it maintains its speed, floater airtime, strong ejector airtime, the brilliant spaghetti bowl section, forceful helix, dive into a tunnel, surprising airtime moments, no mid-course brake run, a very long ride, a spectacular setting along the beautiful Connecticut River, an amazing night ride. In my opinion, this is by far the best layout and the most complete roller coaster I have ever ridden that does not go upside down. This is a masterpiece, and it is complete perfection. And number 3 on my list goes to X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain, the Aero 4D Wing Coaster. This one totally shocked me. It is the most intense coaster I have ever ridden, and my all-time favorite first drop. It legitimately had me nervous. I even like the way it rides on the track. I had so much fun on this, I couldn't get enough. I kept going back for another ride. Number 2 goes to Iron Rattler, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Of course, I would have Iron Rattler this high. I can never get enough of this one. The drop, the interaction next to, on top of, and inside the quarry wall, that awesome 0G roll, the standing airtime hill after the roll, the crazy drop off the quarry wall, and my absolute favorite trains and restraints on any coaster. And my number 1 coaster is, of course, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. Can anything ever top it? The most airtime moments on any coaster in the world, the most airtime in terms of duration, 4 inversions, tons of head choppers inside the structure, perfectly smooth ride, extremely long ride. I don't think any explanation was needed for this one. So that's my list. Let me know your favorites in the comments or provide a link to your top coasters video, as that is my favorite type of coaster video to watch. I always appreciate varied opinions, and even though we will have different opinions on coasters, none of us are wrong, because it's your own personal opinion based on your experiences and preferences. Thank you all for watching. Never forget that you are important to someone. You all have been awesome, and I will see you next time.